Hey friends, so what I got going on here is I'm about to start a tub for growing some mushrooms. So this is the tub that I made itself. This is the bulk, the soil for the mushroom green itself. Just kind of a mixture of a bunch of different, a concoction of a bunch of different things that'll really help the mushrooms grow really well here. I got the grain that I've made, so I'm gonna pretty much do a grain to grain transfer with my grain here, and then I'm gonna do two different jars because I have more grain here as well. So this is one, another strain, and this is another one of another strain. So different strains for different gains. But I'm gonna go ahead and kind of show you how I like to start making my tub. I'll have separate videos in here showing how I make my grain, how I inoculate jars, and how I make my substrate, all that stuff. So if you guys are interested, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, do the notification bell thing. I will definitely have future content in here, as this is kind of everything I'm learning as I go with this sort of stuff, and it seems to be working out so far. So I mean, it'd be interesting to just kind of document this as kind of my experience and just my perspective of how I do things. So pretty minimalist, but I've gotten things as I went on just to either make things easier or just be more, better optimize my methods essentially. So I started in the closet, and eventually I got a tent and a light and some other things, and that just made everything way better and faster, and it's helped. So this will just be kind of how, like, a video, or not even a video, but just a channel documenting this sort of stuff. Again, this kind of ties into the gardening video that I made. So here we go. All right, so like I said, here we go. We're pretty much got our monotub here that we've built. It's just a, I want to say an 18-gallon tub, is that right? But I have a bigger tub. You know how you have those monster ones that have wheels, the medium ones, and then you have like the small shoebox ones. Yeah, this is more of like that medium-sized one. So what I did here is I got a 2-inch hole saw, and I very carefully drilled 6 holes in the box. And I do this with every box that I make. And this is just for the FAE, or what they call it, fresh air exchange. I said that backwards. Fresh air exchange, otherwise known as FAE. And pretty much what I did is I made 2 holes on the long side, 1 hole on the short side. I covered it with breathable tape. You can use any sort of breathable tape. So if you go to like, I don't know, any sort of like pharmacy store, or if you just go on Amazon, you can just look up breathable medical tape. I forget what it's called, but any sort of tape that's breathable, just because you want to be able to get the air exchange in there. So drilled the holes, covered them up with tape. Before that, what I did is I put a line of black duct tape along the bottom 6 inches, roughly 6 inches, 6 to 8 inches off the bottom. And that's because the mushrooms will grow towards light. So if this isn't spray painted, it's not the end of the world. But the mushrooms are going to grow downwards, and it's essentially going to take all the energy out of growing upwards. You would rather have them grow where you can harvest versus the bottom. They grow out that way. You can't really do anything. There's no saving them. So that's pretty much that. But again, it's not the end of the world if that happens. And then what I did in here is I used a trash bag, just a basic, I don't know, those massive gargantuans, and I just folded it and I taped it. This tape doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be breathable. I just used Coach's tape because I had a ton of it. But you just layer pretty much that whole bottom side. And then, before that, you spray paint. So duct tape, you spray paint the bottom, That makes sure that everything's dark, and then this is just a double insurance slash it optimizes methods in the future when you want to start doing, when you start doing flushes. So essentially you put the soil and grain in here. It grows one time once you harvest those fruits. Then after that, you just dunk it in water and then let it dry out a little bit and put it back in this tub here, and it'll keep growing another whole batch you can harvest. And it just happens. It happens, I mean, you can do a lot of flushes. I really don't know. Like I said, I'm kind of learning this as I go, but I've heard people getting on average anywhere between 2 to 3 flushes, maybe more, maybe less, depending on the strain. But yeah, I'm pretty stoked about this. This is probably my 7th tub that I've made so far. 2 tubs right now are kind of going through the fruiting phase, where I'll show in other videos, I'll kind of show what that looks like. And this is kind of the beginning of it. So yeah, spray paint the bottom, layer the whole bottom here with the trash bag, and you'll see why as I start doing it. And what we're gonna do first is we're gonna add some of this Lizard King into a smaller grain that I made and a larger grain that I made. So I have 2 kind of different size jars. No real reason as to why I chose this. It's just so I have it for future use if I wanted to make more tubs. So it's pretty cool that once you get this beautiful jar of myceliated grain, you can essentially make more out of it for an infinite amount. I mean, not infinite amount. It's going to start getting weaker as you start doing more grain to grains, but this is the first grain to grain. So if I wanted to just use this whole jar for grain to grains for a 2nd generation, then I could make a whole bunch of grains, and I could just use a little section of this and put it in each jar, and it'll become beautiful myceliated jars just like this in a few weeks. So it's pretty cool about that. So I don't want to talk too much here, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this, and I'm going to scoop out some of this grain to put in each jar here. And what's going to happen in a few weeks, I'll make another video. This will be the 2nd generation of Lizard King. And what's going to happen is it's going to look like this jar, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to do that, use a little bit of this in here, and then we're going to use the rest of this to make a monotub using our grain and our sterilized bulk substrate. Homemade, all homemade, you know. So here we go. We're opening the jar. This was inoculated on August 20th. It is now September 18th, so I mean, close to a month. But I think that's all good. So here we go. Here's the jar. You can kind of see, let's see there. Beautiful, nice myceliation here. Ideally, you would like this to be in a still air environment, but you're going to find as my videos go on, my methods are fairly unconventional in the sense that I try to use as clean measures as possible, but I don't have a still air. I mean, I have a still air box, which is kind of getting made right now, but I don't have like a vent or anything like that. So pretty basic here, but it's been so far so good. I've had maybe 2 jars of contamination, one of which was a grain bag that I bought from a vendor, and yeah, it just didn't work out. So I have my gloves on, so my hands are clean. I'm just going to put a little bit of this in here. Boom, that's good. Literally just put like barely that much, you know. Maybe I want to say like a table and a spoon and a half. Pardon me. Smoke. All right, we're going to shake it around. Let it do its thing. Make sure this is nice and tight. What I did here on the jar, on each jar, is I punch a hole here so that if I want to inoculate it, I could. But also it allows the grain to breathe, the grain of mycelium to breathe, because you do want it to go, you do want it to kind of not oxygenate so much in here, get so much oxygen, because it grows off of carbon dioxide, from my understanding. Or I could have it backwards, I'm not sure, again. But here, boom, you can see there's a little bit of mycelium in there. Shake it around, good to go. That's the first jar. Second jar, the bigger one. We're going to put about the same amount. Again, you can use more or less. It's just going to speed up the process or slow it down. So if I use like 2 grains, sure, I'll use the lid too. So this is the actual Lizard King lid that I've used, the myceliated one. I'm going to use that on here because it's the same size. Shake it around, and hopefully that'll kind of expedite things. So I would say maybe in like 2 to 3 weeks, this should be nice and beautifully myceliated, if that's the right term. So now I'm going to use the rest of this jar, and I'm just going to layer the bottom in here with some grain. So I start off with grain, substrate, grain, substrate, and then I think one more layer of grain and substrate if I have, depending on how much I have. Press it down, and then that's pretty much it. So I'll show you guys kind of how that goes. So we're going to start here. You can kind of see the tub there. We're just going to lightly, gently pour a little bit in here. What I should have done before that, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to spray lightly, mist lightly, the tub with hydrogen peroxide. And that's going to help kind of fight off any like contamination. The science is kind of lacking in that from what I understand, but it's worked for me. So I'm going to continue doing what I do. Again, my methods are kind of unconventional. I'm just spraying over the myceliated grain. So there we go. A little bit there, and then I'm going to layer the bottom a little bit more here. You just kind of want it spread, you know. Cover a good amount of area. Boom. A little bit more in there. And that's the bottom layer. Now we're going to use our substrate. So let's see if I can move this over. So this is just something I made. Pretty much put all my ingredients into a pillowcase, boiled it for a couple hours at 190, and then hung dry it pretty much to a point where they call this the field capacity test, where you grab a bunch, and then if you squeeze it, you kind of get some drips of water. It's not gushing water, but it's just enough water where it's moist enough so you don't have to water it, because ideally what I want to do here is I want to put everything in the tub, put the tub in the trash bag. This is just insurance, of course. I don't have to put in the trash bag, but then put that trash bag, the tub trash bag, into my incubation tent, which is just darkness. Let it do its thing for a couple weeks. It'll turn beautifully white and myceliated, and then from there I case it with some coir, and then I have it in my fruiting chamber. So this right now is kind of the beginning stages. So sterile substrate here. I have some hay, I got some sawdust, manure, vermiculite. I got a little bit of coir in there, some rice hulls, some priming sugar. I put a bottle of hydrogen peroxide and then some coffee. Boil it at, again, 190 for a couple hours, and that's pretty much how I do this. I'll have another video showing how I make this as well. So that's kind of what that consisted of. So now that the whole bottom here is nice and covered, I'm just going to start covering all of the grains on the bottom. So I don't want to overdo it, but I just want to make sure that everything's nice and covered. So here we go. A little bit of that. You might have to break it apart. I think my manure ended up just clumping together, but that's all right. There you go. So there's that. Now, just going to case it. Not case it, but make sure everything's nice and covered. So I'm pressing down the grain, or pressing down my substrate into the grain, so there's as much contact as possible. It's a little bit of skinny here, so I'm going to put a little bit more right over here. And then my question was, when I did my first tub, I had leftover substrate. So I asked, hey, what do I do with leftover substrate? And pretty much what you can do is when you make another batch of bulk substrate, you just boil it with that, and that kind of re-sterilizes it. So some good to know stuff there. All right, almost got that. And that's good to go. All right, so now we're gonna continue adding another layer of grain. So that was the first layer of lasagna, mushroom lasagna. Now we're gonna do all this here. And yeah, pretty much the mushrooms are going in the substrate, which your hands are covered in, so it's not really contaminated. I'm not using my bare hands. So it's sufficient enough. That works. That definitely works. All right. Nice and covered. Let's get a little bit of the corners. What I find is that my current tubs right now, the ones that I've just started that are going through the fruiting phase, is they're all fruiting on the sides, which is interesting. From what I've heard is that It's because most of the moisture sticks to the side of the tub. So that's why a lot of fruits tend to go towards the sides. So you can see here, when you use hay for your substrate, when you make it, you want to make sure you cut it up. I'm just lazy. But it works. I mean, I just try to, if I get a big chunk of hay, I just put it back in the bucket and kind of get a little bit more of that manure vermiculate soil goodness, soily goodness. But the hay is a really good insulator. It holds moisture. And it's just a great nutrient from what I've read in Stamets' book. He loves using any sort of these types of material. I forget what he calls them, but pretty much it retains moisture, you know, like things like wood or hay, sawdust, coir, those types of, you know, husky fibers that are really kind of girthy. It's like wearing a coat when you're cold. So there's that. Okay. All right. Push it down. So I'm kind of doing these videos out of sequence that I really should have started was, hey, okay, I'm going to show you guys how to make a monotub, but whatever. I'm going with it. You know, we'll have those videos, so I'm not going to stress out about it. Honestly, this part is probably going to be a fast forward, just kind of showing me how I do it. And I might just do a voiceover on this part, just to make it a little bit more entertaining, because who wants to hear just a guy chat about making a tub? Here, just to make it easier. As a matter of fact, I don't think I'm going to edit this stuff, because I just want to put it out there, right? That's what it ends up being. Just go. Just do it. Shia LaBeouf, do it. All right. Now, here we go. That's some good substrate here. I think I have enough for one more layer, so this is going to be a real good one. Try to keep this one thin because I still got to make two more tubs. So 2 more tubs. So I'm probably going to have to make more substrates. So y'all will probably have a substrate video here in the near future. How exciting is that? Pressing it down, nice and moist. Here we go. All right, and the final layer, the final countdown. Here we go. Beautiful. All right. All right. There we go. Okay, and now we're going to add that final layer of substrate to the top. Get some hay in there, make it nice and insulated. Okay. Ooh, man, that coffee smell just kills it. Smells really good. Okay. So I pretty much, when I make my substrate, and I'll explain this in the video when I make it, I have it pretty much cut out for 1 serving size, which is just about 1 tub. I made twice that, so in reality I should have enough for 2 tubs. I might have just been overzealous with this tub and just went ham, but it's all good. I use this jar, and this is 1 jar. So pretty much that's how I make my tub. Hang on, let's make it official here. So pretty much from here, what I do is hang on, take my gloves off. I'll spray the lid for sterilization practices, just enough to mist it. Cover it, and then for extra insurance, what I do, okay, 39 gallons. So this is a 39-gallon trash bag. Oh, even before that, what I do is I label my tub so I know. I label it with the strain and then the date that it went into incubation. So Liz King, incubation. This is September 18th, 09. Oh no, I hate when it does this. Anyways, 09/18. 09/18. There we go. I think this is going to be like my 5th or 6th tub. I don't think it really matters. No, this is the 4th batch. So with this being my 4th batch, and this is overkill because the tub is already darkened out on the bottom, and my incubation tent is pretty much, it's dark. There's no light that gets in there. But again, this is just to kind of stave off any oxygen, aka anaerobic, no oxygen. And then I pretty much tape off, and then I write a number 4 here so that I know, oh no, so that I know when to pull this. I'm just gonna put it on here, right here, 4. All right, and that's pretty much what I do with my Monotub. If I wanted to leave it here, cool, but ideally you'd like it in a nice kind of warmer, humid, or place somewhere where there's gonna be stagnant air. One could argue, yeah, it's in a trash bag, who cares? But that's kind of my practice. So I put this in the closet or put it in my incubation tent where it's not gonna get touched for at least 2 weeks. I check up on it in that week and a half time frame. Make sure everything's looking good. I don't really have any factors with contamination or anything like that, but that's pretty much it. So this is kind of like, this is the second phase. The first phase is, of course, making the jars, which, of course, we're gonna make videos for. But this is how I make my monotubs. So far, I've had success with it. Though I am inexperienced, I don't really know much about this. I'm kind of learning as I go. This is just kind of for documentation and educational purposes. So I appreciate you.